used to think fiction was scarier than reality, but recently I found out it's the complete opposite. Listen to this. When I was in my early 20s and living in Philadelphia, I always used public transportation. It's not that I couldn't afford a car, I just didn't want to deal with filling it with gas and all the maintenance that comes with it. Anyway, I was on my way to work one morning, and as usual, I was taking the bus. I had my headphones in, zoning everyone out around me, listening to a new podcast that I had found. It was a very normal day as far as I was concerned, until I smelled something horrible. Now, yes, I was on public transportation, and sometimes you smell some weird things, but this smell trumped any of those smells. This smelled like rotten meat sitting in the sun for 2 weeks straight. I remember my eyes were actually stinging. I looked around the bus, just to see if anyone else smelled this or noticed something weird. And I did start to see a few people with disgusted looks on their face, also looking around and searching for that smell. Just as soon as I was going to get up and tell the bus driver, there were about 10 cops with flashing lights right behind our bus, yelling through a bullhorn for us to pull over. The bus driver pulled to the side of the road, and I sat back down. About 5 officers came onto the bus, guns drawn, telling us all to stay down. And I ducked my head, confused, and watched as the officers went to the very back of the bus and grabbed this old man. They grabbed his bags and put him in handcuffs and escorted him off the bus. We all watched as the cops escorted the old man to the squad car and put him in the back seat, reading him his Miranda rights. That's when we saw the officers going through the old man's bags. To this day, I still can't get the image out of my head. One of the officers was searching through his bags when 2 severed heads fell to the ground. They rolled around like watermelons. I couldn't believe it, but this is as real as me telling you this. That old man was riding the bus with 2 human heads in his bag, without a care in the world. I even remember him smiling as the police put him in the back of the cop car. But those human heads were the horrible smell that we all smelled on the bus, just rotting in his bags. And this man was literally in his 70s. At first glance, he seemed completely harmless. I couldn't believe someone his age would be capable of such a crime. That was the day I found out reality is much scarier than any fiction. We truly do not know what goes on in people's minds, and we certainly don't know what they are capable of. You know when you hear a story and think, no, that can't be true? Well, this is that story, and I promise you, it's true. For context, I was a 26-year-old female at the time, riding the bus home from work. It was around 10:30 at night, and I was exhausted. The bus only had about 10 other people on it, and as far as I was concerned, it was just another normal ride home on the bus. That was until I noticed him. There was a man, close to my age, sitting by the front, turned around and staring directly at me. I avoided his eyes and looked down at my phone. I was used to weirdos staring at me on the bus all the time, and I didn't like to entertain any advances. I was scrolling through TikTok videos when I felt like I was being stared at again. I looked up and saw that same guy looking at me, but this time, he was a few seats closer. At this point, I was getting nervous. I started really studying him in case things escalated. Even though he was my age, his hair was very thin. He had a long nose, his face was full of acne, and he was pretty overweight. I made a mental note of him in case he tried anything weird, and just went back to my phone. I was sending my roommate a text about being home soon when someone sat in the seat next to me. I looked up and saw that the guy was now only inches from my face. I clutched my phone and my bag and asked him, "What does he want?" The guy smiled and showed me his phone. Pulled up on the screen was my Tinder account. He was swiping through all the pictures of me and said that we matched a week ago, but I never responded back to him. He said that Tinder told him my location was only 1 mile away, so he got on the bus to try to find me. He laughed and said this could be our first date here on this bus. That's when the bus came to a stop and people started getting off. Even though this was not my stop, I shoved this creepy guy out of my seat and sprinted off the bus. There was a Walmart only 2 minutes from the stop, so I ran over there where there was plenty of people. Thankfully, the guy did not follow me. I went onto my phone and deleted Tinder. I told myself I am never using that app again. I also told myself I would never use public transportation again, and dipped into my savings account to buy a used car. From Walmart, I ordered an Uber and was able to make it home safely. But yeah, this story is unfortunately completely true. I'm just glad I'm okay. I believe we all have at least one traumatizing story to tell, and if you don't have one yet, you haven't lived long enough. But here's my story. This happened back in 2018 when I was 20 years old. I was taking the bus home from a late shift I had at work, and I still lived with my parents, and we didn't have a car. Also, I'm a female. Anyway, I got onto the bus a little after midnight. I said hey to Larry, the bus driver, as I usually did. He was always a nice guy. And I went to my usual seat in the back. This late, there was rarely anyone on the bus, and I was thankful that it was just me that night. I sat down and started to watch some YouTube videos on my phone. Maybe about 5 minutes into watching videos, I started to hear a clicking noise. I looked up, but the bus was completely empty except for Larry and me. I figured I was just hearing things and went back to my video. And after about 30 seconds or so, I heard that clicking noise again. I listened closely. I couldn't be sure, but that clicking noise sounded like a camera clicking, like when it was snapping photos. At this point, I was getting nervous because it definitely sounded like a camera snapping pictures. But how could that be possible when I was the only one riding that bus? I was about to get back to watching my YouTube video when I looked down. Across from me, laying under the seat and barely visible, was a man with a camera. He had it out and was taking pictures up my skirt. He had on a ski mask. I screamed like I was dying and ran up to Larry, the bus driver. I was bawling my eyes out, trying to explain the man under the seat. Larry pulled over, but when he did, the man under the seat rushed past us and bolted out the front door. He ran so hard that he actually broke the door window. I cried like a baby until the police arrived. I gave them my statement and explained what happened. Since I couldn't get a proper ID because the man was wearing a ski mask, the police were never able to catch him. I've read more cases about people hiding under bus seats and taking pictures up girls' skirts. It's absolutely disgusting, and I still to this day am traumatized by that man's actions. It's something that I pray no other girl has to experience. So please, be safe out there and be aware of all your surroundings, especially on public transportation.